Good day, everyone, and welcome to Dynamic Cycle Institute webinar powered by Taghleef Industries. I am Ambra Stocco, Marketing Communications for Taghleef, and I will be your moderator for today. Before we begin, we would like to thank you for your participation at our previous webinar with Lysella, where we discussed about the successful collaboration behind Project KitKat that led to the creation of Australia's first polypropylene food wrapper made with chemically recycled content. For today's webinar, we are also joined in by Monica Battistella, Taghleef's Product Manager and Sustainability Advisor, to introduce our speaker and take part in our Q&A session shortly after the presentation. Hello, Monica, how are you?
I'm good, thank you, Ambra, and hello to everyone who's joined us today. I'm delighted to be part of our ongoing Dynamic Cycle webinar series with the team of reDESIGN. reDESIGN is a tailor-fit service by Taghleef, wherein our TI experts facilitate the switch of customers and partners from using traditional materials to a more innovative and sustainable solution. We carefully assess the needs of our customers and collaborate with them so that together we can find and redesign the packaging that is most suitable for their needs.
Indeed, Monica, and in every webinar session, we will be tackling the key role of reDESIGN. So don't forget to follow Taghleef's LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube pages for the latest updates. You can also visit our page, that's dynamiccycle.ti-films.com, so you can sign up or rewatch our previous sessions and know more about our upcoming webinars for the year. Now, if you have any questions for today's presentation, you are very much welcome to type them in through the chat box, and we will answer them during the Q&A session. Monica, why don't you finally introduce our speaker for today?
Thank you, Ambra. This afternoon, we are joined by EXPRA, Extended Producer Responsibility Alliance, founded in 2013. It's the Alliance for 27 packaging and packaging waste recovery and recycling systems from 27 countries. EXPRA acts as the authoritative voice and common policy platform representing the interest of all its members, packaging recovery and recycling organizations. Our speaker today has a great and proven track record. He has been an independent lawyer since 1995, and since then he has had various leading roles such as the German Ministry of Environment, EPR Department. He was also head of international affairs for German Green Dot Scheme and became managing director for Pro Europe. Since 2013, he has been the managing director for EXPRA and has become a vital member and chair for various projects and institutions. Let us welcome Mr. Joachim Quoden. Hi, Joachim.
Oh, hi. Thank you very much for this kind introduction and for welcoming me to this webinar. So, I'm very happy that I'm with you today and introducing you about extended producer responsibility and the work of EXPRA and its members. And perhaps I could see my presentation. That would be great. So it is easier for me to talk you through and to inform you about, where is it? Just a second, sorry. Here we are. Now I'm finally, sorry for this. Even after 1.5 years of Zoom, sometimes I get confused with all these technology. So yes, thanks for introducing EXPRA. As you already said, 27 members from a lot of countries all over the world, not only from the European Union. We are very happy that we have members from other countries in Europe, but also outside Europe, because extended producer responsibility is applied in other continents as well. Just to say that we have a member in Quebec, in Canada, a member in Turkey, in Israel, but also since a few months a member in Chile, South America, because they have EPR law for industry as well, like Colombia. So these two countries are the front runners in South America to make packaging circular, like we are trying to do this in the European Union as well. And I think it is really high time that we are increasing our efforts to make packaging circular, to value packaging a bit more, because it seems that our public, our inhabitants, are forgetting the value of packaging as soon as they use the contained product and ask themselves, oh my God, what shall I do now with the packaging? Why did I use it? I use so much, and now. And this is and now. I think we have to answer, and we have to convince and to show our public that we can give a good life and a good destination even after the original use of the packaging, so that pictures like this that you could see in Brussels 2 years ago is a picture of the past. Extended producer responsibility is a concept that was developed in the end of the 80s in Germany, but also in other countries. It was further developed and written down by a professor in Sweden, Professor Thomas Lundquist, the academic father of EPR. And it is a concept to give a product, a packaging, a further life, so that it stays in the economic circle even after the first use. And the best is, of course, if it continues to stay within the circle for a long time, but minimum to use it in cascades until it cannot be used anymore and has to be incinerated, for example. And to keep this material within the loop, all the different actors have to do their best and have to do their role. And as you can see, somehow all our value chain is active in this circle, starting from the packaging manufacturers and the bottle who are using the packaging for their products, up to the retail selling it to our consumers, local authorities, waste management, recycling, who are collecting, sorting, and recycling the packaging after use, for, in the best case, to use it as material to make new packaging out of it. To keep this circle running and turning, the producer responsibility organization has to work with all the stakeholders, has to try to discuss with them how to improve their performance, their part, so that the circle is as round as possible. And I think all of you know how to cycle, and we all know only if the wheel is really round, the cycling is easy. And that's the same for the economic circle in an EPR system. And everyone can do a lot to improve the circularity, like our fillers and bottlers, to take the design of a packaging into account, or the end of life into account when designing the packaging, work with the packaging manufacturer to know and to understand what are the needs of the sorters, the collectors, and the recyclers. And this is the job of a PRO as well, together with many other players, to make them aware what will happen after the use, and to take this into account. Of course, to work with the consumer so that they take an informed purchase decision when they buy a product, to understand what is for them, for the concrete situation, the best packaging option they can buy, from reuse to one way. And then, of course, to work with the operations, with the local authorities, waste management, and recyclers, so that they always use the optimum state-of-the-art technology to treat our used packaging. And this is all the job of my members, to ensure that such a convenient and efficient collection, sorting, and recycling infrastructure is existing. at home, but also more and more out of home, so that wherever we are consuming a product, there is a collection infrastructure for our packaging. Because the worst thing that can happen is that our inhabitants are littering the packaging, and it is very dangerous for the environment and very difficult to collect and even to recycle littered items. For all of this, we have also to run a transparent data management system to mirror what we are doing in reality, because only if we are all understanding what is happening and believing that the money is spent in the best way and that the material is finally really recycled, only if we trust then the system, we are doing our bit to improve it and to make it happen. So the transparent system is one of the big key points that we all have to take into account. And that means working also with all the various stakeholders, because each of them, each of us has to do their bit of transparency. Only if we understand how municipalities or waste management companies are doing the collection, the sorting and recycling, this gives trust to the rest of the circle. As I already said, design for recycling, sustainability, this is a big part of obligation for the packaging producers and the fillers, so that they really optimize their packaging, taking into account the end-of-life treatment. And working, of course, with our consumers, even starting in the kindergarten and the primary schools, to teach them how to behave best, what they can do as individual to improve the packaging performance, or even to prevent the use of packaging in an optimum case, if this is possible. What are the achievements after 20, 25, even 30 years of EPR systems all over Europe? You can see that in many countries, I think we achieved already a lot. In most of the countries, we are able to collect and to recycle over 2/3 of our packaging. But there is, of course, still room for improvement, not only in some countries, but also for all of us, because we will change in the future the measurement point for recycling. So up to now, to say it's quite easy, we are measuring what we are delivering to the door of the recycler, and in the future we will measure what the recycler is putting in the extruder for plastics or in the pulper for paper. And if you have ever been to a recycler, you will see that between the front door and the concrete using exercise, using step, we are losing some material, like the sleeves or so on. And so this performance will be reduced in the future by a few percentages, for some materials more, for some materials less, so that to reach these figures and the future targets, we will even have to do more. But this is part of our ambition, so it is not a big surprise, because our ambition is to make as many packaging as possible circular. And this also counts for paper, who has more or less, which material has more or less the best performance up to now. This looks fantastic. Finland, 100%. Nearly unbelievable, but they are doing really a fantastic job. With the new measurement point, the current performance will be reduced for some percentages, so even more motivation for us to become better day by day. But of course, we have to convince and make it easy for the inhabitants and for the businesses to collect really all the packaging that we have. And to do this, the legislator in the European Union has decided to issue a lot of new legislation, laws, targets and further obligations, like the Waste Framework Directive, even helping us in the EPR system with the so-called minimum requirements that are based on the best practices of the learnings of the last 25 years, making EPR also mandatory for all the member states. So those member states like Denmark, Hungary, and Croatia, which are not using EPR at the moment, will have to introduce it in the future. The Packaging Waste Directive being amended in 2018 with higher minimum targets for all our packaging, including paper, moving to 75% minimum to 85% in 2030 minimum recycling, which means that we will have to collect nearly all packaging put on the market to be able to achieve the 85% minimum recycling target. Single-use plastics directive, a directive to fight, which was designed to fight especially plastics which is littered into the marine environment, which includes also paper packaging, which is coated with plastics, like our famous drink cups, so that we move away from one-way solutions in this fast food containing area, more to reusable options if this is possible, forbidding straws and so on. So a lot of new efforts necessary for our industry to comply with the new rules in the next year. But in any case, even if we just have revised our waste directive, we are in Brussels, the Commission is already on the next step to revise the just revised packaging directive and waste framework directive, including especially an amendment of the so-called essential requirements. It does not sound very important, but I would say it is one of the most important legal obligations that industry have, because the essential requirements tell you which packaging you are allowed to put on the European market. And if you are not complying with these essential requirements, you are just not allowed to put your packaged products on the European market. Up to now, to say it easily, you were already obliged to put only recyclable packaging on the market. But recyclability meant up to now, you find one professor with one lab who is able to recycle one packaging. But in the future, the definition will be adapted probably somehow in the way like, are you able to collect it? Are you collecting it? Are you able to sort it? Are you sorting it? And is there a market for the sorted fractions? And if you look now to your daily packaging that you are using, just think about it. How you treat these packaging. So an easy example for paper, I'm sure you all know the little portions of sugar within the paper packaging. Are we collecting it? Even if we collect it, are we able to sort it? Probably the answer is no. So in 2030, when the essential requirements come into force in their strongest way, you would not be allowed to put these kind of packaged sugar on the European market if we do not find new ways how to collect and sort it, or if you are not able to pack it in a different way. So you can imagine a lot to do within the next years for our industry, but of course it's a good motivation to become better and better. And to overcome all these challenges, I think we cannot continue with the current way how we implemented the packaging directive. As you can see, every country in Europe did its own thing, and even the countries, the majority of the countries that used producer responsibility did it in a different way. So each country has more or less used its own solution. So I think it is really time. I will not go through all the different options. This is just to show you that really everything is possible. Paradise for consultants who help you to understand how the situation looks like in all the various European countries. Not to talk about other countries outside Europe who invented again, who made it a little bit different from country to country. But nevertheless, I think it works. And we can see a lot of good examples in the countries, how the countries developed over the years. Here is an example from south of Europe. And you can see that besides paper, all the other materials were only collected and recycled in a very limited way. But over the years, even for plastics, but also for all materials, there was a very good development, a sustainable development. So investment year by year to increase the infrastructure for collection, sorting, and recycling, to improve the performance of our systems, so that there is really I'm very optimistic that these countries will easily fulfill the new targets as well, and will reach a certain place where in the end, as much as possible, packaging is staying in the economic circle. And to reach this, we should try to make all our EPR systems for following some key principles, like the clear separation of roles and responsibilities. Every stakeholder has to really understand what is his role, what is his job, what does he have to do exactly, and not overlapping of rules or free space like it is at the moment, so that there is a constant fight between the stakeholders, like we are seeing in some countries, a discussion who has to do what and who has to do what under which conditions, and why he is doing the job and not me, and so on. We have to stop this, because we have to concentrate all our energy to reach the new obligations and to make all packaging circular. And that's why we believe that one of the rules should be that the ownership of an EPR system has to be with those who are paying the bill, because then they have a real interest in the system. They are sitting in the boards, they are steering, they are controlling the system as well, so that only those money is spent which is necessary. And this means also a non-for-profit setup of the system, so that all the money that is invested in the system is staying in the system and not used for other purposes. Transparency, extremely important, as I already explained, so that we are all knowing what is happening, so that the trust is increasing. Equal treatment of producers, so that regardless of the size of a company, the same packaging is costing the same EPR fees, whether you put one of them on the market or a million on the market. This does not make a difference. Cost coverage to reflect the end-of-life costs of a packaging, even more important with fee modulation, so that we take into account the real costs of the various packaging items put on the market at the moment, taken into account mainly the recyclability of a product. Monitoring and enforcement as well, so that a government is not only putting legislation on the market, but it's really following what is happening and enforcing if necessary, so that the bad guys are really punished and not are allowed to continue their free riding or their cheating. And this is, and many of this, what we learned from the last years and what we believe is the right way forward. A lot of this has been reflected now in the Article 8A, the minimum requirements for EPR, what member states have now to put in their legislation. Really the learnings and experience of 25 years. A lot has been said already. You can see it there. Just to mention, for example, one of the learning, if you allow as a government several PROs and not only one, you have to install an independent oversight to steer the competition and to avoid Wild West competition, cherry picking, free riding, creative reporting. And we saw it especially in Germany after the change from one system to many system in 2003, 2005, with a lot of challenges in the first years, and In 2019, finally, the government introduced a so-called central agency with a lot of obligation, but a lot of rights and a lot of enforcement possibilities, which brought really the competition under control from my point of view and led to a great improvement of the system. So that again, it's not only one actor who can do and who can rescue your waste management system. It's a joint obligation of all of us, starting from the European Union, and I think especially at the moment, to help all the member states to implement existing legislation. There are millions of questions now how to implement the single-use plastic directive and the other legislation. So we desperately need the guidelines that have been promised, which are late at the moment, so that the member states can do the new legislation minimum in a harmonized way, best in the same way. Yeah? And that's why there should be an increased collaboration with the European Commission, asking in the best way many questions so that we can quickly and efficiently transpose the existing legislation, not only for packaging, best for all the municipal waste material. We saw if you have an existing bio-waste collection, you collect at the same time much more packaging than before. We saw it in Malta last year or the year before, when the bio-waste collection was introduced. Suddenly the packaging collection, the quantities were higher and the quality was better. So a comprehensive approach is really needed. Cheap landfilling should be stopped by our member states, because this is really an unfair competition to our efforts of separate collection and recycling. The packaging value chain is of course responsible as well, in their own interest, because they want to continue to do business. But since a few years, I'm really happy to see all these efforts and platforms are popping up, and they're doing a fantastic job to work together with the whole value chain, just like C-Flex for flexible packaging, or Forever Green for the paper packaging, or the Holy Grail initiative in the end for all packaging, to introduce an invisible watermark technology, so that not only the sorters can more easy understand and sort the packaging. They could even do it by brands in the end, if the system is rolled out, but also the consumer or any other interested person with a respective app could learn much more about the environmental performance of packaging. So a great future if we roll it out within the next years. Obliged companies to optimize their packaging, take the end of life into account, and here the organizers, the hosts of our seminar, are doing a great job as well to help industry to improve their packaging. And of course, seeing all the marine littered plastic, I think it's not only enough to do a perfect job in Europe. Unfortunately, I think we have to try to improve the waste management system in all the countries. Industry is already doing a great job here. The Alliance to End Plastic Waste, all the prevent initiatives in Germany, Consumer Goods Forum promoting EPR, the Ellen MacArthur Foundation being the front runners and the visionary of a better future here. I think we have to even increase our efforts much more to solve the waste, the problem of plastic waste in our nature. But local authorities are also an important part here. They are the face to our inhabitants. They know the inhabitants best. They know the local situation best. So they have to implement as quickly as possible all the obligations for separate waste collection or appropriate waste collection in their municipalities. And of course, to try to reward those inhabitants who are doing a good job and punish a bit those inhabitants who are not doing a good job, like with pay as you throw, for example, and to follow best practices and not just to insist on local experiments like we see in some countries, in some regions up to now, where one of the biggest cities in Europe, in Germany, is still refusing to introduce curbside collection and continue their experiment with very, very low results. 6 kilos per person instead of 30 or 40 kilos like the other districts and similar cities in Germany. So you see, there is still a lot to do, and hopefully we will be able to improve year by year. But of course, it's easy to tell the others what they should do. We have a big job to do in the next years as well, to increase innovation in our system, from the collection to sorting and recycling, to improve the performance of all our system, introduce appropriate fee modulation system, really to reward those packaging who is doing a great job, and to motivate those packaging which are still running behind a bit, and increasing transparency and communication, so that all actors are trusting more in the system, avoiding black holes, avoiding that something is doing wrong, something is going wrong. So still a lot to do, of course, on our home door as well. And I'm very optimistic if I see my members, their ambition to become better day by day, so that in the end our inhabitants have a good feeling and have a good behavior towards packaging, that they know when they should, what they should do, when it is necessary to use packaging, when it is even not necessary to use packaging, to take these famous informed decision. And if they decide we need a packaging, then to sort it in the best way and never to litter, because this is really the worst thing that we can do. We are trying to do our best to communicate, to help, so if you have any queries today via the chat, I think, or via questions, but also later on, just send us an email and I will try to answer it. We are only a team of 2 people, but very motivated and always trying to give you an honest and clear answer to your questions. Thanks a lot. It was really a pleasure to be with you today, and I give the floor back to our host and moderator to ask questions if they like. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Joachim, for your presentation. It's been really interesting to learn more about extended producer responsibility. Now, as I was mentioning earlier, we will be answering the questions sent in by the audience. And the first one is the following. There is a lot of discussion about eco-modulation fees. How can they reflect recyclability and keep pace with technological advancement across the countries in the European Union?
Yeah, this is I think that this describes the challenge very well that we are facing at the moment, that my members are facing, to understand first, to very much understand what is happening to each and every kind of packaging at the moment, what is really collected, what is sorted, and what is recycled, and what are the respective costs of these substream. Because up to now, in most of the countries, we were dealing with plastic packaging. So we had data on all the plastic packaging, on all the paper packaging in general. Now this understanding has to go 1 step or 2 steps down to understand the subcategories. What is happening to paper and board, for example, what is happening to beverage cartons, so that we are able to understand the specific recyclability and the respective costs to treat and to deal with these subcategories. This is done now in many countries, especially in those countries where we have one PRO. There are still a lot of questions how this can be done in a competitive environment, because up to now companies were asking for one figure, for one price. and they were not really interested in the backgrounds of the different materials and so on. And of course, if you ask one competitor, he will surely have one price for a specific packaging, even more modulated, but the other competitor will surely be happy to be cheaper for this packaging to get the client. So like in Germany, they are thinking to move the question of fee modulation one level up to a joint entity, perhaps to the central agency or to a special fund, to reward those packaging which are easier to recycle by collection money from the different dual systems. So that is something we were hoping as for a guidance by the European Commission and from the consultants. Hopefully, when the guidelines are published after the summer break, I think at the moment, we will get here some more guidance and some more help, especially for countries with several PROs.
Thank you, Joachim. I'm afraid, but that's all the time we have for today's webinar. We have taken note of all our questions anyway, and we will get back to you on this via email. Thank you very much, Joachim, for joining us. It's a real pleasure to have you grace our second Dynamic Cycle webinar series for the year. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you, Monica, and thank you, Joachim, for today. It's been an insightful discussion. If you have any further questions, please feel free to write to us at sustainability@ti-films.com. And to know more about our upcoming Dynamic Cycle webinars, you may follow our LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube pages, or you may also visit dynamiccycle.ti-films.com. Thank you all, and see you in our next webinar.